We'll call our Safety and our Personnel and Finance Committee meeting to order. And just in case you're new to this program, we'll introduce ourselves again, starting with Gabe.
I'm Gabe Johnson, a member of the City Council.
Patrick Russell, Brainerd City Administrator.
Chris Schubert, HR Coordinator.
Chelsea Perkins, Brainerd Dispatch Reporter.
Spencer Bickett, also Brainerd Dispatch Reporter.
He's reporting on what Chelsea's doing. Dave Pritchett, City Council.
And Mary Cope, City Council. And do our guests want to introduce themselves or be anonymous?
Rick Fargo, tonight, Brainerd HRA.
Jennifer Bergman, Executive Director of the Brainerd HRA.
Corky McQuiston, Brainerd Police Department.
And welcome. And we'll begin then with item 1, which is the approval of bills and transfer of funds and payments to contractors. And we have one payment to the contractor for survey work on Wright Street in the amount of $1,300. And you see the transfers and the bills. I think we have signed some statements on that. So what is your pleasure?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. We'll move to the debt refunding. And Patrick, are you able to discuss that, or is Paul Steinman on the phone? Or?
We're calling Paul. He was always intended to be on a conference call with us on this one.
Okay, okay.
But I'm also willing to address any questions the council may have. But you might want to wait for Paul's on this. So
Sure, we'll give it a minute. I believe the idea of this is that we had two bond issues that if we refinance, then we may save some money.
I have a handout, Paul, that I'm going to hand out to the council members.
Okay.
Are you there, Paul?
Thank you.
Are you there, Paul?
Can everybody hear me all right?
Yes, we can, and thank you for joining us.
You bet.
Thank you, Paul.
This would have worked probably a bit better if Connie had been there. That was our plan, but she couldn't make it. We'll make it through.
Okay. Would you like to begin by giving us a brief overview here of, and you did put a great deal of material together, but just hearing you go through some of, hitting the high points may save us some questions.
Yes, let's do that. The PowerPoint slides that you have before you, it's in relatively simplified format, and let's just walk through those. And I think there's about 10 slides there, and I'll go through them relatively quickly, and then you can hit me with questions. So on page 2 of that, I guess basically, why would we be proposing a refunding, or a different way to put it, a refinancing? The two bonds that are before us that have the potential to be refunded are there because we have historically low interest rates today. We think, however, we're in a rising market. The candidates that you have for refund, the 02A and the 07B, they're existing bonds that you have. They were originally sold at rates that are higher than what we have projected in today's market. And they have a call date, so they have the ability to be refinanced. The primary and really the only objective with these two bond issues to reduce the total debt service due on the bonds and present you with the savings. So the next page is just a simple graph, and it shows you where the tax-exempt bond market has been. If you look at that second spike in about May of 2013 through September of 2013, we thought that the glory days of inexpensive tax-exempt financing were all over. And then we started to see a decline all the way through 2014, and on the very right-hand part of that graph, you'll see just a bit of a tick up that we've seen in the market in the past month. And then page 4, the two bonds that have the ability to be refunded at savings are the 02A EDA lease revenue bond. It was originally issued in 2002 for construction of the Public Works Garage. It started in 02 and has maturities today that go from 2016 out to 2023. It's currently callable, meaning that it is able to be called and refunded. And it is what we would call a current refunding. Actually, it's callable September 15th of this year, but anytime that you can basically sell bonds anytime within 90 days of that call date for this to be called a current refunding. The 07B is a general obligation improvement and utility revenue bond. It has identical maturities from 2016 to 2023. It isn't callable till February 1st of next year, but it can be refunded today as what we call in the industry an advance refunding, and we'll talk about that a little bit on another slide. On slide 5, so here's the detail of the 02A and the 07B. The projected future value savings on the 02A, let's call it 52,000, and on the 07B about 77,000. The projected present value savings typically is less on the 02A. That isn't the case, but the difference between the future value and the present value is that present value is taking that future savings stream and basically converting it into today's dollars. So the future value savings numbers, maybe you look at those, that's your real cash that you save from year to year. And well, over the entire term, this is cumulative. The present value savings numbers, that's what that future value savings stream looks like when it's converted to today's dollar. The average rate on the current bond is 5.029% on the 02A and 3.448% on the 07B. And the average rate on the new refunded bonds, this is just a projection as of about a week and a half ago, 1.48% on the 02A and 1.285% on the 07B. And the last row is an important percentage because if that percent isn't 3%, on an advance refunding, by statute, you aren't allowed to do it. So on the 02A, we're fine at 6.697%, and there isn't any minimum threshold because that's a current refunding. But on the 07B, that's an advance refunding, and it has to meet a minimum threshold of 3% present value savings in order to be allowed to be funded by statute. And today it's at 3.674%. Page 6, you'll see a cash flow comparison. This shows, and this is on the 02A. So this might look a little odd. I'll take one moment to explain the last year. So each year you see, like 2016, you'll save $12,445. If the rates come in exactly as we've estimated them, and 2017, 11,400, so on and so forth. In the last year, it looks odd because your debt service in the last year is higher than it is than it otherwise would be for the following reason. This is a EDA lease revenue bond that currently has a debt service reserve fund of about $62,000. So part of how you achieve savings today is by taking that debt service reserve fund out and using it to reduce how much you're going to borrow on the refunding. So you're borrowing $62,000 less on the refunding. You're just using cash from that debt service reserve that you have. If this bond were not refunded, In the last year, rather than paying the full load of debt service, you would pull the debt service reserve the past year and use it to pay part of the debt service. So that's why this looks a little odd in the last year where your debt service, where you don't save anything, where there's actually a cost in the last year on your debt service savings. It's because of that. It's because of the uniqueness of the debt service reserve fund. All of the savings that we're talking about, though, that's calculated into the total number. So the total at the bottom there, $47,225 of savings. Obviously, that's net of that last year's number. And then graph on page 7. That is, it's just to show you, just demonstrate graphically for you what it looks like. Net new debt service is the blue bar, and the old net debt service is the red bar. Okay, and I'll just keep going here. We'll get through to the end, and I'll be take. So on the 07B, this is on page 8. The debt service, because this is an advance refunding, your savings don't show up for one more year. So your savings would start 2/1/17, which is basically that's this fall's levy. That's levy 15 for collect 16 that you would use to make this 17 payment. So that's pretty immediate savings for you. $12,052, and then so on and so forth, for a total of $73,357 of savings. Slide 9, just a graphical presentation of that. Slide 10, so issues for discussion, kind of a pros and cons. So the advantages is that the debt service savings start with the 2015-2016 levy for both of these. The EDA lease revenue bond would be, it's 100% paid with levy, so that makes an immediate levy impact. The 07B is an improvement and utility bond issue, but as I understand it, you started using 100% levy to make those debt service payments, rather than using some of those utility funds that assist making those debt service payments. So you have the advantage of reducing the levy on the 07B as well. Market conditions are good for this at the present time. Once again, we think they're rising. Eventually they'll rise. The Federal Open Market Committee is talking eventually this year, sometime, about a raise in the key interest rate, but we can't see the future. And again, the 02A is 100% levy. The 07B also is 100% levy. So these are savings that go directly to your levy. The cons, the issue that is advance refunded, the 07B, that can only be advance refunded one time. Now that may not be an issue because the new refunded issue, it may not have a call date. We may not structure it with a new call date because there's only 8 years remaining on that bond. But it's important to know, if you issue in advance of the call date, you only get to do that one time. So if there was a new call date, say in year 6 of the refunded bonds, we have to wait to get all the way to that call date in order to refund these bonds again. And the second bullet here is a little bit more complicated. The negative arbitrage number, the negative number is about $12,770. I guess, unless you really want to know what negative arbitrage is, the important piece of information here is that all of the savings that we discuss are net of this negative arbitrage number. They're net of all costs of issuance, and they're either a present value or a future value number. So So those are real savings numbers that we're providing, not, you don't have to subtract costs from that or anything like that. Those are real and true savings. And then I guess lastly, and then I'm happy to take questions, the process, procedural steps. For the 07B, there really isn't anything that is unique in the procedural steps. I would show up for a set sale meeting. We would set the sale of the refunding. We would have an official statement, a rating, all those different pieces. And then I'd come back and we would consider awarding the sale. That's for the 07B. For this 02A, it currently is an EDA bond. So the EDA needs to take one simple action to allow the city to refund it. And the city we would propose it would be refunded as a general obligation capital improvement plan bond. So that's the only way that this could be refunded under that new statute from back to 2003 or 2004. But in order to do that, some of you folks sitting there were with us when we went through the last capital improvement plan bond that received a petition within the 30-day reverse referendum period, and that bond could not be sold for that reason without holding a referendum. That same process applies to the 2002A refunding. So we have to add that Public Works garage. It's a little odd because the Public Works garage is already constructed, but to meet the statute, we have to add it to the CIP. We have to hold a public hearing on that new CIP, and then we have to wait for that 30-day reverse referendum period prior to selling that refunding. And obviously we know what happens. The petition that's received is forced to a referendum, and I mean, this is a different situation where we have, potential savings, so I don't know that would necessarily occur, but it's something that is a unique part of this particular refunding. So that was a lot of information in about 7, so I'm happy to take questions.
Okay, are there any questions by committee members? Okay, Gary Sheeler, our council president, has joined us, Paul, and he has a question.
Paul, the administrative fees, are they included in all these savings, or is that over and above, and what would they approximately be?
Okay, I think I heard the question right. So the numbers that we provide you on page, let's go to page 5 of this PowerPoint, where it shows very nicely the 02A and the 07B. And let's just pick the future value savings number to talk about. Those numbers are real savings to you. They're net of all fees. So on the 02A, you have costs of issuance that are approximately $38,000. On the 07B, your costs are a little bit higher than that because there are 2 different pieces. I'll look that up right now though as we're talking. So, but on the 02A, about $38,000. On the 07B, about $51,000, it appears.
Does that answer your question,
Yes.
Gary? And so that's the cost, a new cost for reissuance of those bonds.
Right. So a lot of times, and that's a good question about cost, because a lot of times, let's talk about how that cost compares to the future value savings on the 02A of $52,000. So the question, so your total savings, total gross savings would be $52,000 plus the $38,000.
Mm-hmm.
Which is 90 up to what is that?
Basically 90,000.
38, 52, right?
Mm.
your total gross savings is 90,000, and from that total gross savings, you pay about 38,000 in cost of issuance, and you net approximately 52,000. That's a different way to put it, resulting in the same numbers.
Well, just to be sure I understand it, then the new cost of issuance for the two is about 88,000. Is that right?
Added together at 38 and about
51. About 89,000.
approximately, yep.
And the savings that you're projecting from both of them is about 90,000? No.
120.
Oh,
128, after taking
That's
these
the
costs
net.
out.
Yeah.
128,000.
Right,
Okay.
and that's after paying these
So
Okay.
it's actually closer to $200,000
Mhm.
total. Take out the 80,000,
Mhm.
it's 120,000 of savings.
Right, that's what we need to know. Are there any other, some other questions or some things additionally that you'd like to clarify, Paul?
I have one.
I guess I'd just like to say that in a lot of cases, and cases before, Mary probably remembers this, and others as well, sometimes we wouldn't bring these refundings to committee. We would go right to a set sale. In this case, though, these numbers, dollars of savings are very, very subjective. So, I can tell you candidly, some folks in larger cities with larger budgets wouldn't consider these to be viable refunding candidates because the dollars are lower. The percentages are good. The percentages on that same page at the bottom, the 6.6%, the 3.6. So I just, Sheldon County agreed that we should have this discussion and a little bit more process to make certain that there's agreement to move forward. So that's why we're here at committee level and not to council.
Now, the cost, the 89,000, that's immediate, is that right? And the projected savings is over a period of years.
Yes, that's correct. So the best numbers to compare the immediate cost to would be the present value savings numbers.
So where exactly now are we getting this money to pay for these immediate costs?
Right, well, all of the costs of issuance are contained within the execution of the refunding bond, so there isn't any out-of-pocket cost.
Okay.
Well, that was my question. So,
The cost of issuance, can that be negotiated down?
Well, your costs of issuance are, I would say, relatively fixed. The cost of issuance include a rating fee with S&P. I'm going to estimate these. I think for both of these together, that would be around, I think that's around 13 or 14,000. There's our fee, Sprinstead fee, and there is the underwriter's fee, the fee that the underwriter needs to, that we think the underwriter needs to market the bond. It's an estimate, but there's legal fees in this as well for bond counsel to render your tax exempt opinion.
The answer was no.
Well, the best timing, this is another reason that Connie and I debated a little bit, the timing of bringing this to committee, the timing of having good savings right now versus waiting and maybe not having any savings, or if we wait, we may have more savings. These are the things we just don't know. But the other piece of that is, if you had a new issuance, new money, that is most appropriately the time to refund bonds, because you do have fixed costs in all of this. And the more you can combine, the more issuance you can combine into the, each single time, the better, the more financially advantageous it is for you.
So what we had talked about is that if we were going to issue debt this fall, the idea was wrapping that in with it, but theoretically we're not going to, but that's not finalized at this point in time. So.
Okay.
Right, and that is really, those decisions are tough for staff and your municipal advisor as well, because if we didn't put this out in front of you and 6 or 7 months from now it was gone, obviously we think you would, maybe you would have liked to have an opportunity to weigh in on this. 6 months from now, if it's gone, you don't have one at all. So, but that said, we don't know for certain what the future is. 2 months ago, these numbers were slightly higher, maybe $5,000 higher on the O2A, and maybe about the same on the O7B, but the market came up a little bit, pushed these down. But we don't know that in 6 months, who knows if there's more bad economic news out there, if the Feds put off their, what seems to be inevitable interest rate increase. These could be good refundings at the next opportunity that you folks are in the market for new money. We just don't know that. So
what Paul's talking about is that this has been on our radar for at least 9 months. We've been looking at the different numbers and running them, and so it's something that staff always looks at. We're looking ahead for you.
Do either of these issues currently have an excess of in their reserve? Or have either
I think Connie and you talked about that
Yeah,
today,
but
and
she
she told you that it was like a negative, like $1,000 or $2,000 or something.
I wasn't really clear because she wasn't feeling very well, so I wasn't really certain about it.
That's what I was told.
Okay, so there's about $1,000 reserve.
well, on the O2A, Mary, there's a $62,000 reserve fund right now. And our proposal here would be to pull that out and use it, and use it as cash to reduce how much you have to borrow to refund this. That's where a lot of your savings comes in. We don't need a debt service reserve anymore because this is going to be a general obligation security. It has a reserve because it was the EDA lease revenue bond, which isn't nearly as secure as a general obligation. So in order to sell it, it had to have a debt service reserve. But we would propose to pull that out and use that cash right now today to refund these bonds. Still today, that cash is earning so little. Embarrassingly small amount of return is being earned on that debt service reserve. So that's definitely a better use of cash.
Okay, are there any other questions? Anyone have any questions? Anybody in the audience have any questions? Anyone? Now, I think you used the term reissue. So in effect, do we cash them in and then reissue them? Or are they just sort of changed from one form to another?
It's a new bond that pays off the old bond.
That's what I'm trying to get clear. It's a new bond that pays off the old bond?
Yes. So basically, you'll see the O2A go away entirely, and you'll have a 2015A in its place, and it will be called a General Obligation Capital Improvement Plan bond. So one simply replaces the other. All of the maturities are the same. We aren't proposing to extend maturities, which would cost you money, or we always have the option of shortening it, but that won't allow you to have any savings. So all of the pieces, the structure is identical in all cases, and all you'll see is one that will no longer be on your books, and a new one that replaces it.
And our debt service will be positively affected to the tune of what?
Well, this will move, the O2A will move from an EDA bond to a city bond. And the par amount of that O2A bond is about $675,000. This is your debt, your total debt will go up slightly because of this addition, and it's no longer EDA, it's city. But your impact is savings to your levy because you're paying all of the EDA's costs. That's how it was designed.
So our total debt service will change how much? Total for both issues.
Right, the debt service, if we go to that PowerPoint slide number 5, or I'm sorry, let's go down a couple more. Go to 6, PowerPoint slide number 6, where we show annual savings, 2002A, debt service comparison. Now, I didn't include the 2 columns, the old debt service and the new debt service. I just included the net here. So your new debt service will be lower than your old debt service by $12,445. It's February 1st of 2016 payment.
Okay.
Mary, you're on page 8, let's talk about page 6.
Well, they're very similar. Okay. Any other questions? Any action this committee wants to take?
I move to approve the refunding of the 2 issues.
Second.
A motion to approve the refunding and a second discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Paul.
You're very welcome. We'll be talking to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, that was interesting. Item 3 is request authorization for out-of-state travel, and that's Corky. If you want to come on up. I guess you can have to pull up a chair.
This is the most crowded this meeting's ever been.
Okay.
I won't waste your time repeating what's in the memo. I'll just entertain any questions that you might have regarding it.
I move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. No, you
Thank you
never
for being the chair.
really get by that
Took a
easily.
longer to move the chair than it did today.
Thank you, Corky. Thank you.
Nice presentation.
Leave of absence request paid on call firefighter. Is there someone here on that issue?
I can take care of it.
We will
Don't
count
wanna
on you,
pay the-
Patrick.
Don't want to pay the interim money.
Just asking.
It's the same process you've had in the past, looking for authorization to authorize the leave of absence.
A question I had on that one is that's paid on call. Is there any cost to the city?
No.
Okay.
They're identifying that they're going to be gone and not
Right.
Responding to fires, which means they're taking an absence from
Right.
having to hit their percentages. And so it's an approved absence
Okay.
rather than
Right.
missing.
But
time.
nothing accrues, no pension part or
Nope.
anything.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And the next item is the creation of a procurement policy, and I would like to hold that. I'm certainly, he wants to have some questions, but I talked with Connie about that before she left this morning, and she said she too had some questions relative to the federal requirements. And I told her I had a lot of questions, but as you know, she's had a health issue, and so she's not here. And I think it would be better
That
to
makes
just
sense.
hold it until she comes back. Does anybody have a disagreement? So we'll hold that. And update on the current TIF districts and who is taking that one.
A couple of updates on that. Part of the process that the city has, we wanted to first of all update you and all the council members right from data that we submit for our TIF reporting. Since 1987, the city has 27 TIF districts, and I'll take Corky's lead and quit reading to you what's already written. But part of it, the most important part of that is with again, on our radar as staff, we are monitoring different TIF districts, and as they come due, we're looking at presenting that to the council. We have 2 for sure that we are looking at closing, and a third one that we are running the numbers on constantly, monitoring it, and we will get back to you on that. I thought it was an appropriate time to mention this to the council, being that you're looking at the Royal Tire one that's working through the process at this point in time. Stressing the fact that TIF districts don't go on forever. We have improvements, they pay off the debt that is required to, and then a lot of the times, as you see there, we retire them early. Just more for information.
Thank you for bringing that up. It's always good news.
I was looking forward to getting a spreadsheet tonight.
I was looking for a map too, but we'll get you both.
Well, whatever. Thank you, Patrick. Item 7 is the update on the phone system and the generator purchase.
Jeff and I can handle that one, or I can handle it, because Jeff's just a bonus being here. That's just
You have to make a move a chair.
Start with the phone system.
Let's start with the phone system. They have received quotes approximately 10 days ago. We haven't had time to go through and analyze all the quotes at this point in time. There's been a variety of other projects. Staff's been working on weekends, getting computer systems changed over. But most importantly, what we wanted to say is that they did an analysis of all the bids received, and we are looking at $45,000 to $50,000 for the phone system. If you recall, the council did budget $100,000, and for the 2 items, we were looking at a generator, and we were looking at the phone systems. Phone systems were the priority. That was taking a little bit longer. The generator moved up. The thought was if we could get the 2 within our budgetary constraints, we would recommend moving on one of them, or at least the generator sooner than later, because follow up on that, we saw some quote increases for the generator. Since that time, so I guess I'm going to report back to you, and I should also remind council too, is that the park department budget came in under, on their capital improvement project, approximately $24,000. So we, at council's action, we added that to the CIP, and so we have $124,000 to work with. What we're indicating with the phone system, it's going to come in at 40-45, and then we do have quotes for the generator coming in at the low quote at 51.
Do you have any idea why the phone system appears to be coming in a little bit higher? I think we had thought 40,000 about.
We had a lot of, we had actually quotes back in 2014.
Or 13 even.
13, that's right. And then when the process went through the petition that Mr. Steinman just talked about, they were rejected. And part of it was we actually had a system proposed that evaporated. The provider no longer provided that. And so we were doing best guesstimates, and I thought we were pretty clear to council that we didn't have any details at that point in time on the phone system. Really depended on market conditions. Okay. And the reality was that these bids came in a variety of different areas. More thorough review today verified that it was actually $5,000 than we were thinking as early as last week. So there were some switches that would not work with our system, so that increased it up to the $45,000 to $50,000.
Okay. Well, when we get it in, it'll be right up to par, and we'll have all the bells and whistles we need. And
we anticipate a thorough review tomorrow. We've got a meeting scheduled for that, and then having it on the city council agenda. Everything tells me for the June 1st meeting.
I would think.
Okay. Well, thank you for the update. Go ahead and pick.
How long are these generator quotes good for?
Corky, you recall? I don't know.
30 and 60 days.
Okay, we'll move on to that one because there's no action on the phone system, and I see we do have 4 vendors provided 5 quotes, and the low one is $51,989. And I know that we wanted to be certain we got the phone system in first. It was our priority, and we wanted to be certain that we were not overspending our budget. But we do have about $124,000 right now with the addition from the park board, and it looks as if the phone system is, and the generator together would come in under that amount. So I think if the council chooses and the committee chooses to recommend, we could certainly recommend on the generator at this point. I would have a question though for Corky or whoever can answer it. On the generator, is there additional cost for installation?
No.
Or this includes
That is supposed to
everything?
include everything.
Okay, because that, could add a lot if it didn't. Okay, are you satisfied with what you saw in this quote?
Yeah, I think so. I got some input from some of the personnel at BPU, more of their area of expertise, and they looked over some of the quotes and gave some feedback on it and recommended that actually that low quote, based upon the brand of the generator, that they thought that was fair and reasonable, and it covered everything adequate to get it all installed and have it start up and be ready.
Now, is this a generator just for you, or is it also for the fire department?
No, it was only done for the police department based on our kilowatt usage.
Okay.
Both parties went to PPU and got our kilowatt usage and based their bids on that.
Patrick's,
The
yeah.
fire department does already have their own generator.
Okay, so they're satisfied with what they got, we hope.
Some of the important things that are current with what we have with, right now the phone system is set up through the PD. And so if the phone system were to go down, or sorry, if we lost power, PD is going to lose, and so is the fire department. They'll lose phone system.
So, what is your pleasure?
Move to approve this bid from Midwest Generators for $51,989.
Second.
Is there a discussion?
I'd just like to say
Please.
that I am disappointed that we still don't have an actual quote on the phone system. But this is $30,000 cheaper than we thought on the generator just a month ago, so
Right.
that's good.
Well, I think that we're being quite orderly about it and not just saying anything goes. We're trying to look at our budget and the money we have and the priorities, so
Can I
it looks
ask,
good.
Mr. Can I ask a question?
Please.
What are you disappointed about?
We made a prioritization of our CIP things. At the beginning of the year, we identified the phone system as number one, so we were going to get quotes on that, figure out how much money was left over. The council still hasn't seen quotes on the number one priority, and we're authorizing the spending of money on the number two priority. It's just a little out of order.
It is part of the concern is it's staffing time too. The one can happen a lot faster without a whole lot of technical expertise going into it, and that's why it's taking much longer for the phone system.
And I would be agreeing with Gabe in that I like priority setting too, but because the phone system is close, and we do have some figures that look like they're going to be accurate, and so I think I can live with this because it looks like our two priorities are likely to come to fruition, and so I think it was a good exercise, and we'll move along. And is there any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, motion carried. And thanks to everybody who did so much work. Riverwalk sub-agreement with the HRA. And that was put in there. Come on, guys, join us. I thought they did a really good job of putting this together. And there were just a couple of things that I would like to see added, if I may, to Jennifer and Rick, and thank you both for being here. And one would be on the committee, on the appointment of a committee. I believe that is number 3 under your initial steps. And I would like some clarification, which my suspicion is was intended, but just not put in. But some clear identification that it would be an appointment, open appointment process, open to the public, so that everybody out there, regardless of their particular point of view, would have an opportunity to be involved and know that their thoughts and their concerns were welcome. And I'm seeing you're shaking your head yes, so.
Me too.
And you too. So will that, it will be added then?
Yep, so, and Mary and I spoke earlier, I called just to
Right.
go over it, and I
appreciate
think
it.
that's a wonderful suggestion. Of course, that was intended,
I thought
that it would be an
so.
open
I was
process.
sure you did.
Yep, so we will make that change
Okay.
and include that language. Process would be an open process and available to all Brainerd residents.
Okay, and the other concern I had, and that would be if somewhere you could suggest that the identification, perhaps this is something the coordinator would need to do, and then bring it to your board and committee. But the identification of sensitive environmental concerns relative to the project. It would be much better if they were addressed up front by the committee and the HRA board. Much better than to have some kind of a squabble go on about it at some point. And so I think if that's in there, it's very clear that the concern is there for everyone and it will be addressed. And if you could consider that, I would appreciate it. Those were I thought a good job was done here.
And if I may, just for clarification on identification of sensitive environmental concerns,
Right.
what specifically are you thinking of?
Well,
as
the
far as-
river primarily, and the wetlands. That's all. Much of that area is wetland, and the river, of course, is a prime concern that I have. And so I think as you go through it, and if you hire a coordinator with some degree of knowledge, that person will surely be pretty sensitive to some of that. But it's just my opinion that if you do those things up front, right up front, I think the public has a better feeling about it. So that's mine. Anybody else have anything? I did think a good job was done here, and I appreciate that. But how about Gabe, you?
I don't have any questions. I think it looks good. I think it looks great.
And how about,
That was pretty clear, pretty straight to the point.
okay, do you need anything more from us, or do you have things you want to talk about?
I don't. Patrick and I worked with Eric Queering, who drafted the subgrantee agreement. I thought it spelled everything out that we had discussed. So unless council has any questions, I thought it sounded
And how
like
about you, Mr. Chairman?
I'm happy with everything. We'll get moving forward now on this.
Okay.
I had a motion
Right.
to approve the agreement to manage the different nature grant.
Second.
Would you identify the two issues that they would include?
Yes,
Okay.
so long as that it's open appointment to the committee.
Right, and just some identification, and then they'll be addressed. If you don't identify them, sometimes things aren't addressed. So if they're identified, then the public will know that you looked at this and what conclusions you came to. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both. You don't have to leave now just because you think you're done.
Give me up my spot at the table. Jerry says he wants to out of here.
Okay, update on the city administrator's search. Do we really want to go there? Okay, what are we supposed to talk about? I guess we all know the update. We are down to one candidate. Mr. Sievert has withdrawn. We are down to one. Is there any discussion that the committee would like to have? As far as I know, this was never given to our committee to specifically, so I don't know.
We've had this on the committee agenda in the past, the process. And
Okay.
if you recall, Sharon Klump was on the
Right.
speakerphone
She
with
was.
this committee.
She
So
was.
it's always been on this committee,
She
so we
was.
thought it was appropriate.
Does anybody have anything they want to say or recommend or anything at all?
Well, I recommend that we discuss it as a full council tonight and see what our next steps
That's
are.
a real easy out.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
I'll repeat myself and say what I'm going to say.
Okay, so the suggestion, do we even need a motion? Just suggest something?
No, it's on the agenda.
Okay. And then the summary of the Special Personnel and Finance Committee workshop. I thought it was outstanding. I absolutely cannot say enough good things about the work that went into it. It was extremely detailed. I was telling Chelsea that I think she should get a copy of it because I think it's all public information.
That was during the closed session?
No, just what's in the workshop, in the personnel manual.
Oh, the manual, I thought you said the...
No, because no, not at all. But the manual is
That's all public
it's
information.
public.
It's always
Right.
been given out through to the newspapers. Every time the council's adopted a contract, that's always given to the newspaper as part of
But when we
regular
saw the
conduct.
whole thing in its entirety, I thought it was, I was just really kind of stunned. There were things in there I frankly was not aware of in that detail. I had a cursory understanding, but not a detailed understanding. And that's true. And I was very impressed with the work that was done. And I think it gives us a real skeleton as we proceed for where we may want to go. You know, we're obsolete when we compare ourselves with some units of government in certain areas in that personnel policy. We're just totally obsolete. And there are others where maybe we're ahead. So I think we've got a lot to talk about. Do you want to set a date for the next meeting? Connie is extremely busy right now, winding up with the auditors and winding up with the budget for this year and thinking of next year.
What are you looking at floating in?
She would like to have us wait till September. I had hoped it could be earlier, but we have to respect her time as well. So maybe the end of August she would be able to. What do you think, Patrick?
The end of August is when you're going to be in the middle of your budget discussions.
Well, we're going to have to do
But
it.
if you take a little look at your timing, you've got your budget discussions start in July, August. You'll adopt the preliminary levy in September. And if you recall, Mr. Schiesler left, but you guys, the city council already agreed to restart the strategic planning process when the new administrator gets on board, so that could be as early as July. So that's your July, then August, then you're really moving into September, October to look at the workshop.
Well, why don't we look at the very first part of September? We don't have to set the date tonight, but maybe you can all review your own calendars, and maybe that week or two after Labor Day we can set something up.
Topic was the only other thing that Connie and I talked about after. We didn't include the topic. I don't know if you guys wanted to set a topic or a continuation of our previous discussions.
I'm not prepared at this point to set a topic, but there was so much to absorb in that I'm not prepared at this point, but I think we've got plenty of work to do. So maybe we'll just try to set a date the first or second meeting of September and then go from there.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Works for me.
Okay. Is there anything else to come before this committee?
Nothing else.